are fundamental to the new perception that the Holy Spirit is teaching. And so we have a whole section about faith, belief, and vision this evening, so that you understand the role that they play and that you can properly direct your faith and your belief in because the direction is up to you. Welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader for this session is Julie.
All special relationships have sin as their goal, for they are bargains with reality, toward which the seeming union is adjusted. Forget not this: to bargain is to set a limit, and any brother with whom you have a limited relationship, you hate. You may attempt to keep the bargain in the name of fairness, sometimes demanding payment of yourself, perhaps more often of the other. Thus, in fairness, you attempt to ease the guilt that comes from the accepted purpose of this relationship. And that is why the Holy Spirit must change its purpose to make it useful to Him and harm less to you.
Mm-hmm. So those opening comments about the special relationship are hard at first to understand because they do mention special relationships have sin as their goal, and that's not so obvious to an individual that enters into a special relationship, what the goal is. What is obvious is that we we enter into those special relationships with a sense of union with the other, but what they fail to recognize is that union is also a form of exclusion of everyone else. So I'm going to unite with this one person, but not with uh, everyone else. I'm going to make this one person a special relationship. And so what happens is there becomes a purpose to the relationship, talking about the special relationship now, that is not recognized, but that brings guilt on, because as we just illustrated, union with only one other special person is an exclusion of union with everyone else. And so as a result, it reinforces separation, which brings about a sense of existential guilt, all of which can be corrected in the hands of the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit aims not to eliminate or end your relationship with the special person, but to change its purpose and make the relationship useful to the Holy Spirit and remove all forms of guilt and sin and hatred that may be buried deep within your own experience. And so, this theme of the Holy Spirit taking experiences that you developed under the ego's guidance and then transforming them, they are really transformations. We would call them reinterpretations. The Holy Spirit will do that with a number of things. She does that with words. She does that with relationships. She does that with perception and our ability to learn. All of those things are remapped over to the Holy Spirit's plan. And so she's going to use your ability to relate to other people, but to give it an entirely new meaning.
The Holy Spirit must change its purpose to make it useful to Him and harmless to you. If you accept this change, you have accepted the idea of making room for truth. The source of sin is gone. You may imagine that you still experience its effects, but it is not your purpose, and you no longer want it. No one allows a purpose to be replaced while he desires it, for nothing is so cherished and protected as is a goal the mind accepts. This it will follow, grimly or happily, but always with faith and with the persistence that faith inevitably brings. The power of faith is never recognized if it is placed in sin, but it is always recognized if it is placed in love.
Mhm. So we're going to introduce the laws of faith. How do they operate? This is consistent with the laws of mind, the laws of belief, the laws of decision, the power of your decision. Turns out you can have faith in illusions. You can have faith that you're guilty, faith in the separation. It's a misplaced faith, but is it a form of strong belief in those ideas nonetheless? And so, again, the Holy Spirit will take your ability to have faith in illusions and help you to transform or remap them over to faith in truth. But you have a key role to play here because we're talking about changing the very purpose that guides your actions, your feelings, and your thoughts. And as it says here, if you accept this change in purpose, then you've made room for choice, room for truth. But if you fail to change your purpose, then you really are still going to be motivated and guided by your ego-centered purpose. No one allows a purpose to be replaced as long as he desires it. This is law of faith. Nothing is so cherished and protected as a goal the mind accepts. That goal can be for the truth, but that goal can also be for illusions. So, bottom line is, it is essential for this course that you accept the Holy Spirit's purpose as your own. Her goal, as we know, is the goal of atonement. It brings about for healing through forgiveness and inner peace, and then extends that inner peace to everyone and brings about a transformation. And the the major factor here that you have to understand is you've already been exercising a sense of even under the ego's guidance, we've been exercising a sense of purpose and a sense of faith. Now we want to make these things conscious of where we had placed our faith, what our purpose had been. Now the Holy Spirit will illuminate that, what was conceived under the ego's sponsorship, and provide us with the alternative, which we'll understand as the purpose of holiness. Susie?
This just kind of reminds me of what Atisha asked yesterday and what we were talking about, how, when my goals are misplaced with my ego, it's like hell. But, when my goals are placed in truth and with the Holy Spirit, it's just such a more peaceful, it's like, what is it for? Is it for my ego or is it for my healing? I mean, that is always the question about everything. What is it for? Is it from, So, yeah, I don't know. It just reminded me of yesterday.
Yeah, I too thought about Atisha's comment. For those of you that don't recall or perhaps were not there, Atisha asked, she said, it seems to me in the Course of Miracles that while the spiritual goals are all validated and affirmed, that physical, I think she said physical goals, or maybe she said material goals in the material plane are of no importance. And it was really a question. And it's a really good question, one that we should all seek to look into. And the insight I offered about it is if you have a material goal for which you have never offered to the Holy Spirit, that you've arrived at on your own independently and kind of never checked in with the Holy Spirit, well, that is by definition self-centered. But if you have a material goal, like let's say I need a new house, and what the Course would say is there's no preset answer to all these questions. In all cases, place it before the Holy Spirit. And if you feel at peace with it, then you know you've been guided. But if you feel awkward and uncomfortable, then know there's more to be revealed regarding these things. So thank you, Susie, for recalling that. So before we go on to the next paragraph, just remember this. We've all been using the power of our faith, whether by illusions or for truth. The power of faith is never recognized when it's placed in ego, in darkness, in selfishness, in separation. We do use the power of faith, but we don't recognize that that's our power that we're giving to separation. And when we use our faith for light and truth, it is always recognized. For by definition, we would have brought the Holy Spirit in as our guide for truth.
Why is it strange to you that faith can move mountains? This is indeed a little feat for such a power. For faith can keep the Son of God in chains as long as he believes he is in chains. And when he is released from them, it will be simply because he no longer believes in them, withdrawing faith that they can hold him and placing it in his freedom instead. It is impossible to place equal faith in opposite directions. What faith you give to sin, you take away from holiness. And what you offer holiness has been removed from sin.
Mm-hmm. So again, the power of faith, this section is on faith, belief, and vision. We'll get to belief and vision in just a moment. How does the power of faith operate? We have all been placing our faith under ego guidance, all been placing our faith in something that we arrived at without any reference to spirit guidance. And what this course is about is learning those laws regarding the power of faith and being willing, this is where willingness comes in, to withdraw your faith from those things that you have previously invested in. And I quoted a passage yesterday from another source that says it takes a great person who, having started out on one path, realizes that they've made a mistake and is willing then to reverse themselves and go take a different path. It's a willingness to change your mind, to admit I was mistaken. I do not want to continue to misplace my faith. So this withdrawing of your faith and then placing it instead in the guidance in the hands of the Holy Spirit to guide. This entire program is under that banner of recognizing the power of your faith, misplaced power of your faith, and your willingness to withdraw it. Only you, as you all know, only you can make that decision as to where you are going to place your faith in any given situation. Julie, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Jonica. The script that I struggle with still, even though I've come a long way and let go of many, because in 12 step, this is the whole instruction also, right? And that literature talks about using electricity in the home as an example, and a person that you may have loved in the past as a way of telling everyone that absolutely we have practiced faith and absolutely we have worshiped. We just worshiped different things. Electricity, had faith in, or worshiped a person. So I find that I do well with those examples, but what I get caught in today is there's a story that sometimes I entertain about how the way I am and the choices I'm making in my life are not aligned, religiously with whatever story I was brought up with. And because of that, I'm bad, like I'm unacceptable. So that's the lie and the substitution that requires me to practice on the daily. And I'm grateful because it used to be much different things. So I know that this too will evolve, but I'm grateful to have the tools of the program to remind me that I'm a choice maker.
You are a choice maker. And yes, this too will evolve. The progress that you've made up to this point is just the beginning of the progress still to come, as many people testify in this group of how much difference a year makes in their journey and their understanding and their clarity and their freedom. Thank you for sharing that, Julie. We'll go on.
Faith and belief and vision are the means by which the goal of holiness is reached. Through them, the Holy Spirit leads you to the real world and away from all illusions where your faith was laid. This is His direction, the only one He ever sees. And when you wander, He reminds you there is but one. His faith and His belief and vision are all for you. And when you have accepted them completely instead of yours, you will have need of them no longer. For faith and vision and belief are meaningful only before the state of certainty is reached. In heaven, they are unknown, yet heaven is reached through them.
Mm-hmm. to understand this section, this paragraph is really essential because it's the schema for the whole arrangement. So previously on tonight, we talked about the Holy Spirit's purpose becoming our new purpose. And the whole purpose of the Holy Spirit's been talked about before, but we're going to use the words here. The Holy Spirit's purpose is to lead you to the real world, away from illusions. It's to help you achieve a higher goal, which you may not even fully appreciate, the goal of holiness, which is we are as God created us. We are beings of light created in love and by love and for love. There's a holiness to our creation, and the Holy Spirit would have us remember our original state. And so this is the goal of holiness. But how are we to get from this confused state, lacking understanding, misplaced faith, and belief in illusions, to this lofty goal of remembering the truth of our being and our purpose, our existential purpose? Well, it's said right here: faith, belief, and vision are the very tools, the methods by which the goal is achieved. And all of them you have already. You have faith in something, you have belief in something, and you have some sort of vision, although all these things may be directed towards at the way the world teaches, which is based on separation and confusion. But the Holy Spirit will repurpose all of those abilities. Now I'm going to speak of them as abilities: the ability to use your power of faith, the ability to use your power of belief, the ability to use the power of your vision. The Holy Spirit will use them all on your behalf towards this new purpose, if you're willing to accept it, this new goal of holiness. So all that is true. But here's the bigger picture. Faith and belief and vision will not be with you forever, for eternity. They're with you as a means of achieving the goal of holiness. Once you've achieved the goal of holiness, you no longer need faith, because now you have certainty. You no longer need belief. You no longer need vision. And that's why when you have accepted them completely instead of yours, you will have no need of them any longer. So we would say until forgiveness is complete, until learning is complete, until the final lesson you will ever learn, we will still lean on faith, belief, and vision. But when those things have been attained, it's a qualitative transition to a higher state wherein faith, belief, and vision are no longer meaningful. In heaven, they are unknown. Yet we reach heaven through faith and belief and vision. That should be clear. Another way of framing this is in time and space, you will need your faith, belief, and your vision. But when we have completed the goal of time and space, which is this goal of holiness, where learning is completed, then we'll be ready for the last step into heaven. And there, a whole different set of dynamics prevail, and beliefs and power of faith, power of vision are no longer necessary, for they are transcended in the heavenly estate. So, meanwhile, until learning is complete, we need to lean heavily on faith and belief and vision. They are our primary tools. So let's learn to understand how properly to employ them.
It is impossible that the Son of God lack faith, but he can choose where he would have it be. Faithlessness is not a lack of faith, but faith in nothing. Faith given to illusions does not lack power, for by it does the Son of God believe that he is powerless. Thus is he faithless to himself, but strong in faith in his illusions about himself. For faith, perception, and belief you made as means for losing certainty and finding sin. This mad direction was your choice, and by your faith in what you chose, you made what you desired.
Mm-hmm. So it's a favorite theme of mine to say that this is really a course in learning how to use the power that was given you by the Creator. Lack of understanding of the laws and of the presence of that power will lead you to, in an ignorant state, to misuse it, or even to believe that you are powerless. And what we learn here is that you have the power to believe in nothing. Talk about a despairing and hopeless state, the belief in nothing. And thus, you abandon your higher self. You become faithless to your own higher nature. And so, I'm going to assume everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about because you've experienced that. And therefore, you know how easily it is to live in those shadows. And what we know is that the ego comes rushing in and we become strong in faith about the illusions of ourself. So a false self representation, I'm talking about the way I think of myself and the way you think of yourself, comes to prevail. And we then reinforce all the nonsense and guilt and fears regarding the inadequacy and the unlovability of that false self. This is faithlessness to yourself. And I maintain that this is the central problem of the human experience, is not knowing what you are and believing you're something else and giving your faith to the belief in that something else. I'm referring to faith in the illusions about yourself, and then being convinced that you're right about those illusions of yourself. And how could this be? How could we get so confused? Well, it turns out that faith, perception, and belief are attributes of the separation. We just read in the previous paragraph, they are not found in heaven. They are found in time and space, and therefore misused in ignorance. They point us in a mad direction. And it's only through the guidance of the Holy Spirit that she can take those abilities and repurpose them towards her goal of holiness. Without her assistance in repurposing our faith and our perception and our beliefs, I don't know what we would do. We would be stuck with our own sense of powerlessness and sense of faithlessness in our higher nature, and we'd be all convinced that our illusions of ourselves were the truth. Susie?
Hey, Jonica, that was really cool what you just did, what you just said. It just really hit me when you said, hey, we just read in the last paragraph that we don't need faith, perception, and belief when we have certainty.
Right.
Wow, that was just like, so really, the basis of the faith, perception, and belief was all just the stories made up by my ego. Wow, that just hit me like, aha, like amazing. And now I can just go to the Holy Spirit for different faith, perception, and belief. Oh, it's just the way you said it. It just hit me.
And
Thank you.
you're welcome, Susie. And we all know how strong it can be,
Yeah. Oh,
how caught up we can be in that illusion, and how we can remain in that illusion an entire lifetime unless we're fortunate enough to stumble upon some alternative path. For us, it's the Course in Miracles. But I am finding that there are people that are waking up to these illusions in other traditions and in other paths as well. They realize the illusory world of Maya, as it's called in the Hindu teachings. And so I really sense that our world, I mean our planet right now, is undergoing a celestial speed up. It's the beginning. The Course says there's never been a great awakening spiritually on our world. But I'm detecting evidence of movement in other traditions and other groups outside of Course in Miracles, and that have a very similar convergence to principles taught in A Course in Miracles. Anyway, I'm off on another topic right there, but it is encouraging. Um, let's get back on topic here.
The Holy Spirit has a use for all the means for sin by which you sought to find it. But as he uses them, they lead away from sin because his purpose lies in the opposite direction. He sees the means you use, but not the purpose for which you made them. He would not take them from you, for he sees their value as a means for what he wills for you. You made perception that you might choose among your brothers and seek for sin with them. The Holy Spirit sees perception as a means to teach you that the vision of a holy relationship is all you want to see. Then will you give your faith to holiness, desiring and believing in it because of your desire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this reaffirms what we and Susie was just saying is the Holy Spirit says, gosh, they have been practicing their own version under ego guidance of beliefs and faith and perception their entire life. And they're totally practiced in this ability to give their power to those things. let's use them to lead. Let's use faith, belief, and perception to lead them away from confusion and towards a new purpose. It's the opposite direction. We see the means and we will adapt it. And I've thought about this. This is the kindest thing that one could do rather than some program that would yank away everything that you've spent your life doing and say that's worthless, stop, and start from scratch on these new abilities, and thus leaves you feeling really incapable. Instead, the Holy Spirit says, okay, you've been practicing beliefs and perception and faith all these years. We're going to utilize those abilities, but in a new direction. I think it's brilliant. As a teacher, I see how valuable that can be. Everybody gets a head start because you already have been using the power of your faith, power of belief, and perception again and again and again, but just in a direction that you didn't that was purposeless. And now we're going to lean it towards a meaningful direction. And so then the Holy Spirit will utilize our abilities to perceive and to project the thought outward, utilize it as a means to teach us the vision of the holy relationship. That is her goal, to utilize perception, help us to see that every encounter we have is a holy encounter. It's an encounter with another being who carries the light, and help us to see that that's what really matters most. The truth is, your holy encounters and your holy relationships will extend for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, far beyond this life and this world, because the purpose of the Holy Spirit encompasses all of time. And so she will use our perception to teach us this new vision, which we haven't quite explored yet, but we will, to teach us this new vision of what it would be like to have holy relationships with people that we just met, and ultimately with everybody. And then under that motivation, that paradigm, and that new direction, our faith will be given to the goal of holiness, and it will fill our heart and our mind and our soul with a new sense of purpose and meaning and fulfillment and joy. It's quite a package.
Faith and belief become attached to vision, as all the means that once served sin are redirected now toward holiness. For what you think is sin is limitation, and whom you try to limit to the body you hate because you fear. In your refusal to forgive him, you would condemn him to the body because the means for sin are dear to you. And so the body has your faith and your belief. But holiness would set your brother free, removing hatred by removing fear, not as a symptom, but at its source.
So A course teaches by contrast, and there really is this very contrasting choice. And every time we think of another person, they don't have to be in our physical presence. We can regard them as a being of light, as a holy being of light, or we can regard them in terms of flesh and blood and all of its frailties and inadequacies and judgments that might associate with flesh and blood. Um, and both of those ways are available to us, as we know. One would, by believing our brothers and seeing them in terms of bodies, of only bodies, we then misuse our power of faith and thus condemn ourselves and thus belittle our own vision by seeing others as belittled. But the same power repurposed and used for holiness sees holiness in your brother, and that vision then allows you, clears the path for you to see yourself in the light as well. And so we know these principles are true. This is the power of faith, is to have vision in others. We read many chapters ago of how the word charity is used in A Course in Miracles. It's one of my favorite words here, as used in the Course in Miracles. Charity is the belief in, and I'll paraphrase it, in the goodness of another person, even when they can't see it in themselves. So you're charitable to someone else long before they've recognized it in themselves. And when we do that, that's a part of the power of your vision, of seeing something in someone that they cannot see in themselves. And when you practice your perception in this way, it then allows you to see yourself in the light as well.
Those who would free their brothers from the body can have no fear. They have renounced the means for sin by choosing to let all limitations be removed. As they desire to look upon their brothers in holiness, the power of their belief and faith sees far beyond the body, supporting vision, not obstructing it. But first, they chose to recognize how much their faith had limited their understanding of the world, desiring to place its power elsewhere should another point of view be given them. The miracles that follow this decision are also born of faith. For all who choose to look away from sin are given vision and are led to holiness.
Mm-hmm. So in many ways, I take things, of course, says very literal. And so it says first, before we gain access to this higher vision, first they choose to recognize how poorly they've used their faith in the past. For in other words, if you're to become aware of the power of your faith, you have to realize you've been using it all along. It's not unfamiliar to you once it's brought out into the light. And by recognizing that you have been using it, albeit poorly, all along, that's what gives you allows you to make a new decision, a new choice in how you're going to use it, because you recognize that it's the tool whereby you've made yourself unhappy and whereby you've made yourself into a belief that you were inadequate or unloved or whatever the story follows. That power can be redeployed. First, we have to recognize that we were mistaken in using it, because this transformation requires that we change direction. And that change in direction will only come by acknowledging that the direction we had used our power was not making us happy, peaceful, and free, and that we now are ready to choose again.
Those who believe in sin must think the Holy Spirit asks for sacrifice, for this is how they think their purpose is accomplished. Brother, the Holy Spirit knows that sacrifice brings nothing. He makes no bargains. And if you seek to limit him, you will hate him because you are afraid. The gift that he has given you is more than anything that stands this side of heaven. The instant for its recognition is at hand. Join your awareness to what has been already joined. The faith you give your brother can accomplish this. For he who loves the world is seeing it for you, without one spot of sin upon it, and in the innocence that makes the sight of it as beautiful as heaven.
Mm-hmm. So this section is really, in many ways, an introduction to spiritual vision. We will explore it more. Here today, we're talking about how it's used as a means along with belief and perception. But what you should know is when we say vision with capital V, I prefer to call it spiritual vision. Later on, it will be labeled Christ vision. What exactly is that? Well, it comes directly from the mind of spirit. It is not something you have to originate or author. It is something that is gifted to us. He who loves the world is seeing for you, and seeing innocence as beautiful as heaven. It's a pre-existing insight into reality, which has always been available, but which becomes accessible to your mind as you walk down this path of Holy Spirit guidance, particularly of letting go of guilt, choosing forgiveness, choosing to see your brother not as guilty, but as forgiven. As you do that, those obstacles remove, and the spiritual vision that's always been here, you make room for the truth. So nothing new is occurring here. We're just clearing, as we read in the previous session, we're clearing our altars of the idols we made so that the truth alone may rest on them. And you'll recall the biggest idol is the one where we fool ourselves about our own lovability, our own light. Marianne Williamson said, "It's not our darkness for which we're afraid. It is our light." Heather?
I'm just so happy with the sentence that he who loves the world is seeing it for you. I'm just so happy to know that that higher part of me is capable of seeing the good in situations where I can't see any of it. When it all looks just like a hell to me, there's one in me that can and does see it. And that just gives me so much hope and makes me so happy to think, wow, there is a way to see the holiness in situations where I can't see it at all with my human eyes. I'm just very grateful for that.
And to build on what Heather just said, this is why transformation can happen so quickly, because the light and the vision is already here. All we have to do is, so to speak, clean the lens of our illusions away from it, and the light shines through brightly. And that can happen in very short periods of time once we are totally willing to abandon our own self-appointed purpose, self-appointed judgment, and admit that we were mistaken and adopt the Holy Spirit's direction in its stead. Great help, great hope lies in that possibility of quick transformation because of the pre-existing presence of spirit within us.
Your faith and sacrifice has given it great power in your sight, except you do not realize you cannot see because of it. For sacrifice must be exacted of a body, and by another body. The mind could neither ask it nor receive it of itself, and no more could the body. The intention is in the mind, which tries to use the body to carry out the means for sin in which the mind believes. This is the joining of mind and body, an inescapable belief of those who value sin. And so is sacrifice invariably a means for limitation, and thus for hate.
Julie, we're going to move on to the next paragraph.
Think you the Holy Spirit is concerned with this? He gives not what is his purpose to lead you from. You think he would deprive you for good, but good and deprivation are opposites and cannot meaningfully join in any way. It is like saying that the moon and the sun are one because they come with night and day, and so they must be joined. Yet sight of one is but the sign the other has disappeared from sight. Nor is it possible that what gives light be one with what depends on darkness to be seen. Neither demands the sacrifice of the other, yet on the absence of the other does each depend. The body was made to be a sacrifice to sin, and in the darkness, so it still is seen. Yet in the light of vision, it is looked upon quite differently. You can have faith in it to serve the Holy Spirit's goal and give it power to serve as means to help the blind to see. But in their seeing, they look past it, as do you. The faith and the belief you gave, it belongs beyond. You gave perception and belief and faith from mind to body. Let them now be given back to what produced them, and can still use them to save itself from what it made.
Mm-hmm. Let me address this last line or two here. In an egocentric identity system, a body-centric identity system, we gave faith and belief of our what faith and belief occur in your mind, and we use that power to project onto the body our faith and belief that the body was our identity. It's a body-centric identity. And by withdrawing our power from the belief that the body is the center of our identity, we now take them back into the mind, which can now use that faith and power instead towards the goal for which spirit has sponsored. This pattern occurs many times. The body is completely neutral. It'll do whatever you tell it to do. But the mind has projected all this misplaced faith onto it, seeing it as its source. And so the mind, since the mind did that to begin with, it can also choose to withdraw its faith from the body and redirect it in accordance with the Holy Spirit towards the goal of spirit. Do I want to mention the thing here? I do want to mention it. In the previous paragraph, they talk about the distinction between the light and the darkness. And I just wanted to go a little bit off script to say that there's an ancient Babylonian teaching that goes back thousands of years that asserts that the creator is both light and darkness. This is a very olden belief that you will see signs of this that are perpetuated even into our modern world thought systems. But it was the idea that the creator both is love and hate, both peace and chaos. And there were clearly, this is not in accordance with the way the Course teaches. It makes a clear distinction between false belief systems, which center on darkness, lack of love, and deprivation, and the higher truthful system, which centers on lovability and abundance and light and peace and joy. So a lot of that is I see in that paragraph. That's my interpretation. What I was seeing there is be clear that one of the ways in which this might creep into even this teaching system is the idea is that you can make friends with your ego, that you can compromise with the ego and learn to live with it and make it work on your behalf. And the Course would clearly say that you cannot mix both a lie and the truth and come up with something that is useful. You have to make a choice. It's the power of your choice to choose one way or another. So I have run over my time here. It is about your choosing your direction. We've all been making choices regarding our direction all along. And so let's hand that power of choice over to Holy Spirit guidance. Remember, the power of decision is my own. It's in your hands to employ this power. And so I thank you and I trust you will use all this for your own good. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Julie, for your lovely reading. Thank you all for your attention. We look forward to exploring more of Chapter 21, more of spiritual vision as we go forward. Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks, Jules.
Namaste. You're welcome.
Bye,
Have a
everyone.
great night, everybody. Thanks, Jonica.
Bye. Thanks, Monica.
Good night, all.